we're going to be discussing your project manager, which is your liver. Your liver lives under your right rib. And a very good liver function test is just to poke your liver. Just push it very hard. And if it's not happy, what will it say to you? Don't. Don't. If you want to know what it should look like, push the other side. And if it's a little tender, don't be concerned, because it's a recoverable organ. It's the only organ in the body that has the ability to regrow, totally regrow. Like the shark's teeth, constantly regrowing. When they do a liver transplant, they can actually just do a part of the liver because the liver will grow. Being a recoverable organ, it is able to regenerate and it is able to regrow. So let's have a look at the liver, because as I said yesterday, if the project manager is happy, the job site is running well. And by the way, cancer cannot get a hold on the body if the liver is running well. So very important to understand the liver. To understand what your liver is doing today, we need to go way back to that time when you ate solid food. Do you remember it? A few days ago. We're going to feed you again tomorrow. We need to have a look at what your liver does with the food that you eat, because every single thing that goes into your body goes through your liver. Everything that's coming out of your body goes through the liver first and under the jurisdiction of the liver. And that's what we're going to be having a look at today, after we have a look at what happens when food goes in. Never in the history of mankind have human beings consumed so many carbohydrates. Never. Let's have a look at what Aussies consume. What would most Aussies have had for breakfast? Cereal. Very popular food. There's a whole aisle devoted to it in the supermarket, so it must be popular. Very easy for such a fast society. Open cereal, pour into bowl, milk on, eat. And especially when the milk goes on and it all just goes like wet tissue paper, you don't even have to chew, down it is and off to work. I remember when muesli first hit the scene. I was talking to my cousin, I was about 16. I said, "What do you think of muesli?" He said, "Oh, I don't like it." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I have to chew and I haven't got time for that." Cereal or toast, bread. Tell you what, in every corner shop you'll find bread, won't you? Mid-morning, cakes, biscuits. I trained as a psychiatric nurse. Nurses are some of the unhealthiest people. Not all nurses, but a lot are. I would wake at 5 to 7. I got to be on duty at 7. Running down the nurse's home stairs, doing my buttons up in the ward just on the dot of 7. Hadn't drunk water. Nothing to eat. What would we nurses do in our coffee break mid-morning? Whole packet of Arnott's assorted biscuits dunking in cups of tea and coffee. Big cakes, biscuits, consumers. And have you noticed the size of most nurses? They're big. And we'll show you why in a minute. Pasta. I didn't know what pasta was as a child. I'm a 5th generation Australian. We didn't even know what pasta was. We had sausages, mashed potato, peas or beans every night of the week, except for Sunday. Roast. Rice. I didn't know what rice was till I was about 15 and a new product came on the market called Rice-a-Riso. Mum brought it home. We started to have rice. Pizza. I don't think Aussies knew what pizza was 30 years ago, but it's a popular food now. Pie. Well, the pies have always been around. There's even a song about it, isn't it? Meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars. I'm married to an Irishman. What must every meal contain? Well, every main meal. Potatoes. And last and definitely least on the list is the pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugarcane plant. Why do I say least? Because there's no such thing as nourishment in that food. I'm sorry, it's not a food, it is a drug. Would you agree with me that Aussies are high carbohydrate consumers? All of these foods come under the carbohydrate list, and when they break down in the gastrointestinal tract, they break down to glucose. Glucose is a single structure, and it's only as a single structure that it can be absorbed into your blood. Do you know that you have a hollow tube in your body? It's your gastrointestinal tract, and everything that goes in there is not part of you until it gets absorbed into the blood. Then it becomes part of you. And it can only be absorbed into the blood when it is broken down to singular structures. So these foods get broken down as a singular structure. Glucose gets absorbed into the blood, goes on the M1 main highway straight to the project manager. My son's a project manager on a building site. When the plasterers come in, they go to James. When the plumbers come in, they go to James. He's orchestrating the job site. That is what the liver's doing. So the glucose goes to the liver, and the liver determines where the glucose goes. Number one, the glucose is sent to the cell to be burnt as fuel. It is the main fuel used by every cell in the body. Number two, it is stored as glycogen. Glycogen is a name given to quick-release glucose stores. Your liver stores some, but it only can store a little. Your working muscles store some. When you walked up the hill this morning, do you know how you got up the hill? It was your glycogen stores. And the glycogen stored in your working muscles is like it's in a prison. It can only be used by your working muscles. But the glycogen stored in your liver, it can be sent all over the body. But only so much glycogen can be stored. And on a high carbohydrate diet, high glucose is released into the bloodstream. And there's a lot of glucose still left over from being used as the cell and stored as glycogen. And so that excess glucose is stored in the most effective way it can be stored, and that is as fat. This is a fact that many people are unaware of. And when someone wants to lose weight, what part of the diet do they stop? The fat, yeah? The fat. And do they lose weight? Not much. And fat is an essential nutrient. And fat is one of the substances that helps to give a person the satiation feeling or the feeling of satisfaction. And that is why when people are on fat-free diets, you'll find they've got to eat all day long because they never get the satisfaction feeling. One guy, when he heard this, he said, my girlfriend, she has a cup of coffee with skim milk and 3 teaspoons of sugar. What would she be better to have? Actually, no sugar and full cream milk. Actually, better to have none. You see, it's a misconception. When I was in New York in April, I consulted with a couple who asked for a consultation, and it surprised me because they were both in their 60s, both obvious professionals. When I consulted with them, I found out they were both doctors of chiropractic, they were both qualified nutritionists. By the way, amazing musicians. He was head of music in the whole of the New York area. I said, why are you coming to see me? And they said, we used to be Dr. Atkins patients. Wow, I was very excited to meet Dr. Atkins patients. We've all heard of Atkins, yeah? What was Atkins famous for? A diet that no one had ever dared put forth before. What was it? It was high meat, high fat, no carbohydrates. They said, we went to Atkins. That seemed probably early 90s, so probably 20 years ago. They went and saw Atkins. We'd heard of his fame. Well, you see, his book was #1 on the New York Times book list 4 years running. Someone loved him. Nutritionists hated him. Why did the people love him? It's very simple. It worked. And isn't that what everyone's interested in? It worked. They said, Atkins took us off our high carbohydrate diet. They said we're vegetarians. By the way, he said, we went to him because we were putting on weight. We were pre-diabetic. We had no energy. We were not happy with our life, and we'd heard that he'd got fantastic results. So we began to eat meat. You see, the Atkins diet, he suggests 20 grams of carbohydrate a day. Now, the recommended daily allowance for carbohydrate is 300 grams a day. So that's quite a drop. But Atkins had done his research, and he knew that you can actually live without carbohydrates. I don't suggest